Are you the friend who's always being asked for health advice? Now imagine turning that passion into a fulfilling career with our Become a Nutrition Coach program. Step into a world where your enthusiasm for wellness becomes the heart of your own thriving business. With me as your professor and guide and coach on our user-friendly digital platform, you can learn from anywhere at your very own pace. It's perfect for your busy life. Envision empowering others to live their healthiest lives, all while growing a career you love. You're not just gaining a certification here, you're joining a community of like-minded professionals ready to support and celebrate with you every step of the way. So what are you waiting for? It's time to nourish your future and help change lives, including your own. Head over to nutritiouslife.com/BNC for a free class and a sneak peek of the program. Your journey to becoming a nutrition coach begins now. Did you know that 80% of visual impairment cases are actually preventable? That's right. By prioritizing a healthy diet, regular exercise, quality sleep, and managing stress, you can significantly reduce your risk of eye disease and vision loss. I think that is a big wow. Welcome back to the Living a Nutritious Life podcast. I'm your host, Keri Glassman. In this episode, the always enlightening eye health doctor, Dr. Joseph Allen, joins me for a conversation all about eye health. We talk about the crucial role that nutrition and lifestyle play in maintaining optimal eye health and overall well-being, and how things like consuming antioxidants such as lutein and zeaxanthin via food and supplementation can play a major role in your eye health as you age. Dr. Allen and I work together on the Lutein for Every Age initiative, a program created by OmniActive Health Technologies to inspire and empower people to better understand how lutein and zeaxanthin can positively impact our eye and brain health throughout life. So, if you're ready to take control of your eye health, keep listening, and also head over to healthyeyesandbrain.com to learn more. And don't forget, of course, to rate, review, and please share. Welcome to Living a Nutritious Life. I'm Keri Glassman, a celebrity registered dietitian nutritionist. Join me every Tuesday on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms as I bring in some heavy hitters to share the latest in nutrition and wellness science. We dive deep into food, sleep, stress, relationships, and so much more. Your weekly guide to a happier, healthier, more nutritious life. Hello, Dr. Joseph Allen. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Keri?
I am well, and I'm so excited to have you on today. I cannot wait to have this conversation about eye health with you. I know you like to be called Joey, so everyone out there, don't think I'm being rude and disrespectful calling this incredible Dr. Joey. Joey likes to go by Joey. So Joey, welcome to the Living a Nutritious Life podcast. Again, I'm so happy to be chatting with you today. Eye health, such an important topic that we do not talk about enough. I feel like it's just one of those things that, some people started wearing glasses when they were young. Some people wear glasses for the first time when they need readers in their mid 40s, and people, I think, though, very often just think when they think eye health, they think, oh, I'm supposed to eat carrots for good eye health. And sometimes that's where the knowledge ends.
Right.
And it's such an important topic, and it's something that obviously affects everyone. So we need to learn about it. And there's no one better to learn about eye health with than you. So before we dive in with all of my questions that I have for you today, I want you to tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you got involved and interested in eye health and just where that passion comes from, because I know you're very passionate about it.
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me on. This is always a huge honor and really a privilege for me to help share my passion, my knowledge, and to try to help out as many people as I can. I knew I wanted to be an eye doctor from about the age of 13. I had a thick pair of glasses, and I was a real nerdy kid. I sat at home, read books, watched movies, played video games. I didn't really play sports too much, didn't have too many friends. And so when I got into junior high, my mom was like, Joey, I want you to pick a sport. and I picked the manly thing at age 13. I played football. Hard to play football with thick glasses on. And so my mom brought me in, saw an eye doctor, got fit for contact lenses, and just the whole, and I'd already been wearing glasses, but like the whole experience of getting your eyes checked, seeing better, like seeing the world in high definition instantly. And then he even broke down some of the science of contact lenses, and I was just like amazed. And that opened up a world of me being able to play sports. That helped me make friends. That opened my world of self-confidence. And at age of 13, girls started paying attention to me. And that was like the most important thing, right, to a 13-year-old boy in junior high. So it definitely influenced me to look favorably on going to see the eye doctor, who the eye doctor was, what it could do to change people's lives. And that's kind of how I found my way through that.
I love it. I love it. You go to your next eye doctor appointment and you say, so let me tell you, Friday night, I'm going to the movies with this girl. You've changed my life.
Yeah. And then, through college, I took one course in nutrition. I was just interested in I exercised and knew a little bit about nutrition, but not really. But as I started learning more, I started to recognize, especially in school, some patients come in very, very sick, and they don't have just one disease. They have many diseases. They're on so many medications. And there's also patients who came in who didn't have these issues, and they looked young. They looked healthy. They weren't on medications. They were cognitively healthy, even in their 80s. And I was like, what are you doing differently that other people are not? And then I started digging more into the real, like, true research, not just my school notes of what I learned in school, but really what the research was saying. And I became even more infatuated with the relationship between lifestyle, health, just paying attention to your own body, taking care of yourself, and how that pays dividends long term, certainly in eye health and vision, but how it affects everything else. And then just the rest, how connected the whole body is to its own individual parts. We think of just eyes, but in reality, the eye is connected to the brain, connected to the heart. It all has to it's like a huge symphony, right? It's playing in music.
Absolutely. It all connects. And that's why we love chatting, right? Is because I think we're both on the same page there with how all of these how all the different systems in the body connect, but also how all of the different lifestyle factors work together and affect one another. So I love where your passion comes from for this. But I did not know that it started as early as 13. I love that story. I'm not sure if I've shared this story with you, but I haven't shared it with listeners. So I'll share it. If you've heard it, sorry about that. But listeners, I'll tell you, my first experience with, thinking about my eye health was, so I started wearing glasses to see the blackboard. That was the days of blackboards, no smart boards. We had blackboards. And in 9th grade, but I would really just wear them in class. And I didn't even always wear them in class. I wore them here and there when I was sitting far back in the room. When I was 18, I played lacrosse in college, and preseason was always in the gym in the winter. And I remember that first preseason in the winter in the gym with these fluorescent lights, and the ball was just so blurry under the fluorescent lights. And I just couldn't see. And I'm like, okay, well, I only have glasses to see the board. I don't wear glasses all the time. So I went similar to you. I go to the doctor. I got fitted for contacts. And all of a sudden, I was like, the whole world, like I saw the world completely differently. The whole world opened up to me. I remember walking through, I went to Tufts, and I remember walking through campus, looking at these brick buildings, thinking, wait, you can see the lines between bricks? I used to just see a blur of red, but I didn't even know that people saw better than that. Like, I was so used to living that way. So my whole world opened up there. My world opened up to seeing the bricks clearly. Your world opened up to girls at 13. But both of our worlds opened up. No, but it was amazing though. I remember thinking like, wow, people can see things so clearly. I've been missing out for a lot of years. So anyway, that was my first experience.
I'll tell you, we as eye doctors, we all hear stories like that from young kids who'd never really understood that individual leaves on a tree exist, to people who are in their 90s, just suddenly like, whoa, I can see 3D. I can actually see depth perception for the first time in my life. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, I've been wearing contacts and haven't looked back since. We're going to get more into that. Okay. You mentioned, that you're interested in nutrition and you're not just interested in the eyes on their own. You really look at the whole big picture and how nutrition and lifestyle affects our eye health. So can you talk a little bit more specifically about diet and lifestyle and how it affects our eyes, like the direct link to our eyes, and also how it just impacts not only our eye health, but really our vision quality over time?
So there's so much we could honestly just tackle this one question, and we could talk.
I know. There's a lot to cover here.
At the very basic level, we think about glasses, contacts, and that's really the refractive power of the eye in order to see clearly. But the tissues of the eyeball, especially the retina in the back of the eye, the retina is neurological tissue. It's an extension of your brain. And if that tissue isn't functioning optimally, then who cares what kind of glasses or contacts you're wearing? If the retina doesn't work, it doesn't matter what power of glasses you get prescribed. It doesn't matter if you get LASIK or different contact lenses. You're not going to be able to see. It's like trying to judge the walking speed of somebody who has a broken foot just because you put on a different pair of Nikes or something. It doesn't make a difference. The photoreceptors in the back of the eye that most people have learned about even in high school, of rods and cones, right? Rods
and cones. I just had a flashback.
Yeah, right. But the rods and cones within the retina of the eye, they have to send a signal and send that signal through the retina to the brain. And it's doing that all day long. The retina is one of the most highly metabolic tissues in the entire body. And because it's constantly having to regenerate, have you ever looked at maybe a light fixture, like even in your own home, or a light bulb of some kind for a second, and then you pull away and you can see like this after image of the light bulb for a little bit.
Yes.
And then like 5-10 seconds later, it's gone. That is the metabolism of the retina regenerating new photoreceptor cells in real time. Like you're really experiencing those cells regenerating. And that's why the goes away.
They're regenerating. What's the regeneration? Like you hurt them when you've looked directly at the light and then they regenerate, or you're okay. So that's okay.
The light energy, when it gets in through the eye and hits the retinal tissue, it has to go through a chemical reaction that basically damages those photoreceptor cells. Their outer segments is what we refer to them as. They release its energy, sending the signal to the brain, but then there's these cellular outer segments that are damaged that the body then has to phagocytize or eat and basically clean up that garbage tissue, and also simultaneously regenerate a new photoreceptor segment to use, so you can constantly see new information and images.
Okay, so when that little, like that flashing light that you're referring to sort of goes away and you see normally again, that process has all taken place, and you've got new regeneration. You've got regeneration. You've got new cells.
Yeah, it's happening extremely fast, and it's needed, right, for our survival, for our ability to see and process information. But that makes the retina one of the most highly metabolic tissues, and that process results in a high amount of oxidative stress or reactive oxygen species, but it also
one of my favorite terms, by the way, because I did write a whole book on antioxidants years ago, and I love talking about the ORAC scale and oxygen radical absorbent capacity of nutrients, which we'll get into in a few moments. But love that you just mentioned that.
And I know you could school me on that and really going more in depth on that. but with both the reactive oxygen species, but also producing some levels of inflammation and even triggering some of your immune system. That's all involved with these tissues inside the eye. So when it comes to like diet and lifestyle choices, and specifically certain eye health conditions, it really has to do with ways to, obviously if you eat really healthy and you follow certain diet lifestyle choices, you can reduce the inflammation, increase the amount of oxygen or antioxidants that are getting to those tissues. And that supports this very delicate tissue that unfortunately is at high risk of many metabolic diseases that are affected by our metabolism.
Can I interject with one thing here? So when we talk about, let's say, sugar, we know that sugar causes inflammation in our body. Inflammation is linked to all kinds of things, from neuronal degeneration, heart disease, cancer, poor skin health, all of those things. So you're saying something like that. So because you're talking about the inflammation being a trigger for that retina tissue to not function as well and to be as healthy. So eating something like sugar that's inflammatory, we think of it as obviously being bad for everything like I just mentioned, but it's also specifically bad for that retinal tissue. Is that correct?
Yes. The biggest factor when it comes to sugar, if we want to dive into that, really relates to our risk for diabetes and how diabetes affects the retina, but also the lens inside the eye to some extent, because sugar will cause swelling of tissues inside the eye.
Absolutely. But I guess so I was using sugar as an example of something that's inflammatory, but anything we do that would be inflammatory to our body with that is that correct? Saying that that's damaging our retina tissue? Am I making a link that's too far?
I don't want to say there's a direct causation link to it, but the overall the higher amounts of bodily inflammation affect obviously so many other cascades in the body, from things like diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiac disease, neurodegenerative disease, just like you said. And that all is tied in and connected to the eye, the health of the eye. Absolutely.
I'm just trying to simplify it here.
Yeah. I want to simplify things, but at the same time, I'm like, well,
we got to be accurate. We got to be accurate. No, that's good. And that's why you're awesome at what you do. No, I love it. But actually, well, you continue with what you were saying, because I interjected with that because I wanted to make that connection. So let's go back to what you were talking about before. And then I do want to go back to the diabetes thing, because that was a good topic. Right.
We can kind of talk about just in general. I just want to mention for people to think of, like, okay, what's good for the eye specifically? We know that, so the eyeball, not just requiring antioxidants, not just needing anti-inflammatories, those sort of things. It has a high blood supply. The retina in the back of the eye has blood coming from the back part of the eye called the choroid. It's like a small, tiny meshwork of tiny blood vessels. But it also has a blood supply going directly into the retina, a dual blood supply. And that's why things, again, like diabetes play such a big role. But if someone was to go up and be like, hey, what are the most important nutrients, vitamins, things like that for the eye? Yes, like you mentioned earlier, carrots, vitamin A, people are associating with carrots, even though it's technically beta carotene, right? Vitamin A is important. You need good vitamin A in order to see, but also vitamin C, vitamin E, omega-3s, specifically DHA omega-3 plays a role. About 60% of the photoreceptor lipids are DHA omega-3. And
that makes so much sense, because we talk about omega-3s for brain health. Exactly. And I think, and especially for anyone out there that's been pregnant, we talk, I'm sure your doctors talk to you a lot about that, especially in that third trimester, because those omega-3 essential fatty acids are so critical for the development of the baby's brain during that time. So omega-3s, that just makes a lot of sense to me.
The lutein, zeaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin, I know we'll talk about that more later, I imagine, because they're just such a powerhouse within the eye and protecting the eye from so many things. For food specifically, I always try to encourage a lot of my patients about eating more leafy greens and just a wide variety of vegetables. One of the big helping factors is nitric oxide. I imagine you've had other conversations about nitric oxide and its role within the body.
Beets are really great
Yeah,
for nitric acid.
Beets.
Nitric oxide, sorry. Yeah.
Yep. You got it though, but beets are huge on that list. Leafy green vegetables, other forms of cruciferous vegetables have some role in it too. But the nitric oxide will help relax smooth muscle tissue and the blood and help with blood vessel dilation and getting good blood flow to not just the muscles inside the eye that can help with some level of eye strain, but good blood flow to the optic nerve is helpful for glaucoma. It's also helpful for blood flow within the blood vessels of the eye for diabetic retinopathy, macular degeneration, and then also helping reduce eye pressure. In fact, a new medication that came out in the last 5 years for treatment of glaucoma specifically works to upregulate nitric oxide within the eye. But just through diet lifestyle changes, you can already try to help give your body a natural defense by trying to consume more of those types of foods.
Right. And what about sleep, exercise, stress? You know that obviously those are pillars of a nutritious life.
Yeah.
And I imagine they do affect, like you're saying, they do affect our eye health. So let's, and again, I know that this is probably a conversation that we could probably talk about sleep and exercise and stress as it relates to the eye, each for an hour itself or longer than that. But let's just try to touch on each of those a little bit.
The big thing is certainly exercise. More and more research is coming out that people who have regular exercise have less problems with eye health conditions, especially things like diabetes, glaucoma, including macular degeneration. Sleep is a major factor, especially for glaucoma. A lot of research on people with obstructive sleep apnea is showing the significant effect on oxygen supplies and nutrients getting to those critical tissues.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, if somebody's already at risk of those conditions, if they have poor oxygen flow, they're not sleeping regularly, then they're at higher risk. During nighttime sleep is where most of your retinal tissue gets most of its regeneration. And so even a more recent publication is finding that people who, and we can talk about that. I'd love to know your thoughts on melatonin supplementation. But there was a recent publication showing that elderly people over the age of 50 who took melatonin on a regular basis as a supplement was associated with a significant decreased risk of developing macular degeneration. And melatonin does have strong antioxidant effects.
Right.
And there wasn't enough in those research studies to conclude that people should start taking it or for doctors to recommend patients to start taking it for that reason. But it is at least an interesting highlight. Is it something that maybe getting more sleep is the effect, or is it taking a supplement of melatonin on its own?
So, and I mean, I haven't even seen the study, but my reaction to hearing that would be that it's probably the improved sleep quality. The melatonin helped the sleep then helped with the eye health. The fact that melatonin can also act as an antioxidant, that probably also helps. But what I would probably say, again, without having seen this study that you're talking about, I would probably say, get your antioxidants in through food and or other supplementation, and work on your sleep hygiene in another way without taking the melatonin regularly. So improve the sleep, get the antioxidants in, but don't necessarily do it via melatonin. And the reason for that is I'm a fan of melatonin at the right time and place. It's a hormone. I think people often forget that, and they're just taking it and especially they're giving it to kids a lot, and they're just saying, oh, it's just melatonin. It helps you sleep. It's natural. It's a hormone. And I think that people often don't think of it that way. I also think that people, again, just start taking it and they stay on it, and it's not necessarily as effective as when you use it specifically for something like jet lag. So I would say better to use it when you need it in terms of getting your circadian rhythm back on track, but try to get your circadian rhythm on track naturally, without depending on melatonin. So, and that's not to say, there's a lot of sleep supplements that I do like. But again, melatonin isn't something that I like people to take consistently, especially kids.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest highlight is the risk for young kids, because it is a such a strong hormone. It can affect so many other parts of our body and our growth spurts for young kids.
Exactly.
Stress management is something you mentioned, and there are connections between stress and certain eye diseases. One of them is glaucoma. They have found that people who have higher stress biomarkers have increased eye pressure, and higher eye pressure causes more damage to the optic nerve. And there are some publications showing that meditation specifically, people who did meditation was able to lower their stress biomarkers and even lower their eye pressure up to about 25%. Those are some pretty fascinating studies.
Absolutely.
And then we know that people who have very stressful episodes, they have a higher risk of a condition called central serous chorioretinopathy, which is
I'm going to make you say that 3 times fast.
Right. Well, we call it just CSR or CSCR. But this is where a fluid builds up in the back of the eye, kind of like a blister, and it lifts the retina off the tissues of the back of the eye, and it can cause your vision to be distorted, blurry. And thankfully, as long as somebody's not taking exogenous cortisol like steroids, then usually it self-resolves in a matter of a few months. But for some people, if it becomes chronic, lasting greater than 3 months, then it does carry a risk of permanent vision damage and even vision loss for some people. So stress, it does play a role within the eye. And I think as more research comes out, we're starting to have a better understanding of its relationship.
Yeah. It's super fascinating. Let's go back to specifically diet, because of course I love talking about nutrition, and nutrition does play a really big role here. And I love how you mentioned some of the antioxidants that affect our eye health and can help support our eye health. And I always say, it makes total sense when you're talking about it to me. I mean, and I love saying this to people. They say, what should I eat for heart health versus what should I eat for brain health? And there are specific nutrients that are, specific to brain health, specific to heart health. But overall, when you're eating a healthy diet, I always like to remind people what's good for the brain is good for the heart, is good for the eyes, is good for the body, right? It all works. They're all the same. If you're eating these whole real foods and you're getting a variety of these important nutrients, the same nutrients, they just do something different. They might do something different for your eye. They might do something different for your skin. But we need vitamin C, like you said, for your eyes. We need vitamin C for our skin to increase collagen production, right? So all of these nutrients play many different roles. So I love that you touched on that already, but let's dive in a little bit more into the specific nutrients that really support our eye health. You already mentioned, you started to mention some of the antioxidants, specifically lutein. So lutein, for everyone out there, it's a carotenoid. So it's a compound that acts as a powerful antioxidant. I always like to say that there's a lot of nutrients that act as antioxidants. That's why you hear the term antioxidant a lot, because a lot of these different important nutrients act as antioxidants. What that means is, and we talked about this too, you started talking about those we started talking about the ORAC scale and the oxygen radical absorbent capacity. So what antioxidants do is they fight free radicals. And free radicals, I always like to tell people, are those sort of bad guy compounds roaming through your body, causing all kind of damage, inflammation, turning into cancer cells. Like they're basically just wreaking havoc in your body. And antioxidants have the power to squash, neutralize, or again, I'm trying to think of another way to say that, kill those sort of bad guy free radicals, right? So that's why we want those antioxidants in our diet from these different foods to, again, neutralize, squash, kill, however we want to term it, those bad guy free radicals that are causing so much damage. And that's why certain nutrients, I didn't mean to go, I don't know how, by the way, why I went off on ORAC. I think you said the oxygen,
reactive oxygen species.
That's what brought up. I'm like, why am I talking so much about ORAC? I'm really going down on a tangent here about oxygen radical absorbent capacity. But basically, what that stands for, ORAC, which again, I wrote a whole book on this. So I've been fairly obsessed with antioxidant power of foods my whole career. But what that term is doing is basically giving a antioxidant power. It's quantifying the power of a food. We don't really need to go into much more detail there, but just know foods healthy foods have different nutrients that have different antioxidants that help us and prevent all kinds of disease and conditions. So the one we're going to talk about right now for a moment, though, so lutein, you mentioned lutein. And the reason that lutein is so powerful is that it is found in an abundant amount in the retina. There is 3 times as much lutein in the retina as compared to what is in the blood. So lutein kind of acts as this natural shield against those harmful blue light and just ultraviolet rays as well. And I know that it's super important, especially because we're exposed to so much blue light now because of like screen time. And we know that all of that exposure can also increase the risk of age-related macular degeneration. And that is why it is even more critical for many of us to get in antioxidants like lutein to fight that free radical damage, to protect our retina for all the reason you just told us how important the retina was. So that's just a little background there for everyone. I know you know this, Joey, but just for people out there to understand the importance of certain nutrients like lutein when it comes to eye health. So, but I want to hear, I mean, I know you can go in much more depth into the role of lutein and zeaxanthin. So I want to hear, first of all, was I right there? Are we on the same page with lutein?
Yeah, we're definitely on the same page. So yeah, lutein, such a significant role within the back of the eye. Lutein, if you think of the entire retinal tissue, if you could like stretch it out, lutein helps as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory to all of the retina in the back of the eye. Your body also converts lutein to what is called zeaxanthin, or zeaxanthin, some people pronounce it that way. And that gets deposited more specifically in the central part of the eye called the macula. And that is the part of the eye that gives you your central vision, your sharp acuity to be able to read letters, recognize your friend's face from a distance. And that's really the crucial part of the eye that tends to get more reactive oxygen species. It gets more direct light hitting those photoreceptor cells. In fact, the retina doesn't have as much tissue in front of it to protect that part of the eye, because it needs that light energy to see colors and to recognize those sharp images. But lutein, zeaxanthin, and then you got mesozeaxanthin. Sorry if I misspoke. I think lutein creates mesozeaxanthin. There we go. But you get lutein, zeaxanthin from things like green leafy vegetables. It's in some foods like egg yolk to some degree. It's in some peppers. But with these roles within the eye, you're right about the blue light. Blue light is a concern, especially blue light from the sun, just because the pure amount of energy that's hitting your eyes from sunlight, that is one of the bigger risk factors. The blue light from things like computer screens is a concern. There's still a lot of research coming out questioning whether blue light from digital screens is enough to contribute to macular degeneration, but we know that it does play a role with our sleep cycles.
What do you think about getting sunlight in the morning hours to help improve that circadian rhythm? I mean, and I'm always been a fan of that, sort of getting that in the morning, telling your body it's morning, getting your body going and just helping with that whole sleep cycle. But in terms of the sunlight, because you're talking about the sunlight and the blue light from the sun being damaging, how do you feel about that?
I personally think it's great. I try to do it myself. When I wake up in the morning, I try to get a dose of natural sunlight just to help dampen the melatonin that's currently in my system, and then help regulate it toward the rest of the evening. I haven't seen specific studies looking at any effects of that on like retinal health. I believe it's not as major of a concern as long as it's early on during sunrise, sunset, and the early hours of the morning. The biggest concern is if you're getting direct sunlight to the eyeball and the skin tissues around the eyeball during the peak hours of the day where UV light is really high.
Right.
Because that's when UV light's going to cause more damage to the surface of the eye and, again, the ocular tissues of like your eyelids.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you were a fan of that morning sunlight.
Yeah. Again, I would love to see more very like well done studies on something like that to really quantify how much of an effect we're getting. But we know that there's a specific cell within the eye that was only identified 10, 15 years ago, IPRGC, an intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cell. Doesn't contribute.
That cell, that one.
Yeah, that one.
That cell.
That cell is only about 10% of the retina in the back of the eye, does not give visual information. It just sends signals to parts of the brain like the superior colliculus to communicate sleep and wake cycles, as well as some other components of our hormone regulation, including affecting our response to food and some different signals that involve trying to remember the exact insulin growth-like factor. It actually affects that to some degree.
Wow, that's super fascinating.
But like we were saying with lutein, zeaxanthin, not just in protection and health of the eye, there have been evidence showing that supplementing with lutein, zeaxanthin can also affect your visual quality too. It won't necessarily reverse your need for glasses or anything like that. It won't necessarily help you see the 20/20 line better, but it has been shown to reduce glare. Like imagine driving at nighttime, all the terrible glare from headlights, things like that. It helps with photo stress recovery. Again, seeing the bright light up on the ceiling, turning away, how quickly that fades away and you can start seeing clearly again. But then also boosting contrast sensitivity, which plays a humongous role in your ability to detect subtle changes in lighting, to detect colors, to read fine print. So that has also been shown in pretty great. I mean, I've been pretty impressed by the research and how well it's been done, showing that you can have boost in those visual performance areas. And that's why even professional athletes now take supplements, including zeaxanthin, because it improves their eyesight so much.
Right. And it's so important for people to understand this, because I think that so many people think, oh, I have good eyes, I have bad eyes. Like they just think of it as kind of, it's all genetic. Oh, it's just, I've been wearing glasses since I was a kid. For some reason, this condition, I think that people just think of as something like that. Like it is what it is. And it's not. There is so much you can do. Obviously, we're talking about all those things right now, but there's so much you can do to protect your eyes. And like you just said, improve the quality of your eyesight as well. And I actually think that there's a stat that says that 80% of all cases of visual impairment are avoidable, which is like pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it. I mean, I think, because again, I think because so many people just think to themselves, oh, everyone in my family wears glasses, or, oh, I've had to wear glasses since I was a kid. I mean, there's just so much you can do to prevent and support your eye health, to prevent issues and support your eye health.
I think, just to speak on the big heavy hitters that affect vision loss and reduced vision, certainly at an older age, for working age adults, diabetes is the number one contributor to permanent vision loss in working aged adults. Macular degeneration is the number one cause of vision loss and blindness for older adults and worldwide. And then for really young ones, like if we're thinking, hey, our teenagers, our kids, somebody who's maybe in their 20s, 30s, then you're thinking more like nearsightedness, myopia. And myopia is a big puzzle. And we don't need to go too deep into it now, because we could probably talk about that in a whole other episode.
Right.
But we do know that sunlight exposure and outside time, getting outside of indoors, has some sort of signaling to our retina in terms of both, it involves nitric oxide, but it also involves dopamine release and the growth of the eye. It's not fully understood yet, but we know that people, we try to encourage kids and parents to encourage their kids to spend at least 2 hours a day outside rather than being inside in front of a tablet all day.
So it's really a double whammy what's happening right now in our society. I mean, kids, I think, are going outside less because they're inside on screens, and then the screens themselves with the blue light is also damaging. So they're not necessarily getting the sunlight and they're on screens. Is that?
Yeah, we can't villainize the blue light from screens completely. Right. It's still not fully understood. We in fact know it may not be the digital screens that are causing the biggest impact, but just a near device use, whether it be a tablet or a computer screen, but even just reading for long periods of time on an old classic book, spending more time doing up close work.
Right.
With that being said, though, we do know that kids who are using digital devices tend to hold things closer and closer to their face. So they're holding it, only a few inches from their faces. So
right. And like we were saying, they're not outside playing. And when they're on their devices, they're also not moving around and getting exercise. So those are two things, just the being outside, getting the sunlight, and the exercise. So there's
publications on that too, that the physiological just amount of exercise, physical activity is also associated. Less activity is associated with a higher risk for nearsighted development, in my opinion.
Right. So I'm a fan of supplementation as well, as you know, of course. We're both fans of supplementation, especially when it comes to lutein. And because of all the reasons we've already discussed. But I do, as a dietitian, I do have to call out a few more foods. I want everyone to, so we want to, listen, again, there's a time and a place for supplementation. As I said, I'm a fan, but I got to always talk about food as well. So I do just want to also mention some high lutein foods. You did mention the greens, which I'm so happy you did, because I always try to encourage people to get in leafy greens at least twice a day. So get in your greens at least twice a day. If you can at every meal, even better. And, sometimes people say, that's crazy. How do you get it in at breakfast? Well, you throw some spinach. I threw spinach on hard-boiled egg in a wrap this morning. You throw some spinach into a smoothie. You can have a little salad on the side of an egg scramble. It's not impossible. You can do it, but at least 2 times a day. But other foods, broccoli, corn, eggs, that I just already mentioned. We talked about the leafy greens, of course. Just running down a little list here. I have these, all the orange and yellow fruits and vegetables. We know that's so important because, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, most people just when they think of eye health, they think, oh, I'm supposed to eat carrots for good eyes. Well, there's a lot of other orange and yellow fruits and vegetables. So, but get those greens in as well. They're so important, like you mentioned already.
And one of the reasons why I'm a strong supporter of taking it as a supplement, and the diet is I always encourage diet, number one, lifestyle change, but there are publications showing that people who make dietary changes alone doesn't translate to a significant level of serum lutein in the body. It can increase up to about 5 milligrams, but to have optimal levels within the eye, you have to be somewhere between 10 and 20 milligrams a day.
Right. It's hard to get adequate amounts, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult. So for how easy you can just take a supplement and be done with that and have all the benefits for the eye and for the brain, and even some cardiovascular benefits that are shown in the research now. It's a powerhouse for a nutrient.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really good point, because we do want to be eating all of those healthy foods for a variety of reasons. Like we already discussed, what's good for the eyes is good for the brain, is good for the heart, is good for the body. You're also getting a lot of other good nutrients in all of those foods I just mentioned. But also there are times and places, like you said, where the only way to actually really reap the benefits is through supplementation. So a really good point there. You also mentioned the brain health benefits that you just mentioned, cognition. So can we actually talk a little bit about that, the specific cognitive benefits to lutein and zeaxanthin? And I love how when you were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, you were talking about that retina tissue and how it really just connects right there to the brain. And it does really make sense that our eye health is so directly linked to our brain health, just for that reason alone. But that was a really good visual, no pun intended, but that was a good visual, at least for me. I'm imagining the retina tissue like this going from like my eye to the brain, but no, it was a good visual. And I hope people are getting that a little bit. So let's dive into that, the cognitive benefits.
Yeah. So the supplementing with things like lutein, zeaxanthin, they've been shown in both older adults as helping with cognitive performance, mainly in things like verbal memory, composite memory, attention, also to affecting development of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Also with affecting pro-inflammatory cytokines, really shutting off tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6, and interleukin 1 beta. So that's been shown in multiple studies, and it's pretty fascinating how that's that's related to not only cognitive function, but also, again, things like atherosclerosis. Some of those cytokines are also affected in atherosclerotic plaque development. With young kids, just this last year, a publication was produced and found that kids who supplemented with lutein and zeaxanthin, and it was in the form of a gummy supplement, that one had improved focus, which is attention, and focus is a big issue with, I think parents are always concerned about their kids and their attention or lack of attention.
Definitely.
But also improvements in their learning, their episodic memory, as well as their visual spatial working memory, how the brain is interpreting the visual information that's being directed to their eyes and to understanding their environment. So I think there's a lot more for us to learn in that capacity. But for those studies showing it's not just healthy for the eye, but also connected to brain function and cognition is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Like you said, I feel like there's so much more to learn there, but the research thus far is really powerful. You were talking about kids. I wanted to actually ask you, how often do you recommend parents go and bring their kids to get a pediatric eye exam?
Thanks for asking that. That's a big kind of focus right now. It's kind of about to head into this new school year. The recommended ages, I imagine most people will be surprised to hear that the American Optometric Association, the very first eye exam is recommended between 6 and 12 months of life. And I know it blows people's mind. They're like, how can they even tell if they need glasses or what's going on with the eye? And we have several different tools and techniques to do that. But at that age, it's largely just to make sure, hey, the eyes are developing correctly. There's no major, like they don't have a congenital cataract forming, that the eyes are working together as a team, because at about the age of between 3 and 6 months, the eyes should be well aligned and working together. After assuming everything's normal at that age, around the age of 3 is the next recommended kind of major milestone for visual development. And if somebody has a 2-year-old and they have concerns, still bring them in. They don't have to wait till age of 3. They can bring them in sooner. And then assuming still everything's developing normally, somewhere around the age of like 5, 6 years old or before entering first grade, to make sure that their reading capacity, their eye muscles are working in a coordination with each other, and that there's no major deficits where glasses or some other form of treatment intervention would be recommended.
Okay, so that's good to know, because I know that I did not bring my kids to see an eye doctor at age 6 months old. So I should have done that. Now I'm feeling like a bad mom here.
No. We never pass judgments on those things. I think it's just, in many ways, it's our own fault. I think eye doctors maybe haven't spoken up enough about it. We haven't, just parents aren't as informed about it. Even thinking of our own eyes, like you said, we're all reactionary in nature. So unless we see a problem.
Right.
And kids, the challenge with young kids is they don't know that they may have a vision issue, because they think everybody sees the world the same way they do.
Right. Exactly what we were talking about. Right. That's exactly like what we were talking about when we started this podcast. Yeah. And
unfortunately, school vision screenings and just the quick vision check at the pediatrician's office is good, but it's not the same thing as a full eye exam. There's so many other tests that we run to make sure that the eyes and each eye is working together the right way. And so, unfortunately, a lot of things do get missed. And the earlier we catch things, children are in that very special, they have neuroplasticity to about most before the age of 7, but sometimes extending into the early teen years. That's when we have the biggest chance of catching it, improving eyesight, and helping the cognitive brain components of eyesight really improve and solidify. So earlier is better.
Okay. Earlier is better. Earlier is better. And now everyone knows how important it is to eat healthy, not just for their, managing their weight and brain health and heart health and balancing their hormones and all of those things that people are talking about these days, but also for their eye health. And super important to remember that from when you're feeding your kids from a young age, all the way up until, as hopefully many of us live very long, healthy lives, but it's important to focus on our eye health, again, from the food we eat to all of these pillars of a nutritious life, exercising, managing our stress, getting adequate sleep. They all play a role in our eye health and our brain health. And so, yeah, this was really, really super informative today. So I have I've got a couple last questions for you. One kind of random question. So I saw the other day that you should not be showering with contacts. Is that, and how come a doctor has never told me that before?
You're absolutely, it's true that any sort of contact lens wear and water does not mix. And I hate to say it, even when I was a kid, I didn't get that full message.
Yeah. Where did this memo get lost? Because I was never told that.
It's probably one of those things in the fine print. Over being a contact lens wearer myself, and imagine this, I was like a 13-year-old kid spending the night at a friend's house, and I ran out of contact lens solution. I'm thinking, oh, I know I shouldn't sleep in my contacts. So I thought, oh, I'll just use tap water and put my contact in the water. Do not do that.
I know. By the way, I've done that before. I mean, years ago. I haven't done that in a very long time. Right. I've known not to do that. But I have done it before.
And it hurts, right? It burns. It doesn't feel right. That's because our tear chemistry is not just water. It has electrolytes. It has proteins in it. It has certain salt osmolarity content. But tap water, even bottled water, purified water, still has the risk for certain microorganisms to live in that solution. And when it mixes with contact lenses, it basically holds that to the surface of the eye. And any microabrasion, any little kind of scratch in the tissue of your eye, those organisms can get in, cause a massive, terrible infection. And infections related to contact lenses, those have the risk of penetrating and eating through the eye within 24 hours.
Oof. Wow.
It's an emergency.
That's crazy. So I was watching something on that the other day. Maybe other people have seen these TikToks as well. But I was really thinking, how come I never knew that? And that's just crazy that I didn't know that. And crazy that I've been doing that all these years. So I stopped wearing my contacts in the shower now. And I mean, I can't see anything. It is really tough. I got to say, someone like me, I mean, I do not see well without my contacts. Let's just say that. I mean, you could be a foot in front of me and I won't know who you are. So it's been a rough road. I'm having some trouble in the shower lately, but I'm going to get through it because I'm going to protect my eyes.
You'll have to have some dedicated shower glasses, or
I could do that.
They do make prescription swim goggles. They do that.
Well, this is going to be looking great with my Invisalign, my glasses. I'm going to be really looking like a special midlife woman. Anyway,
you could. I don't know your prescription. I don't know your eye health personally, but another option that you could think about, or maybe ortho-K contact lenses. Those are a special type of contact lens that's designed to sleep in. It's kind of like your Invisalign braces, but you sleep in them while you have them on while you sleep, and then you wake up in the morning, you take them off, and it reshapes the surface of your eye so that when you take them off in the morning, you can see 20/20 without having to wear glasses all day. It's like reverse.
This is fascinating, especially since I have been known to also fall asleep with my contacts on, which I do know is the absolute worst thing you can do for your eyes. I have done it multiple times over the years.
Right. You lucked out.
But I do know that that's horrible. Again, the shower thing, I didn't know that. I do know is horrible, but that ortho-K thing sounds super interesting. But I do actually have to have cataract surgery in the fall. So I'm going to have that anyway. Wow. So it's all going to change anyway, but this is not about me. We can move on. We can have a personal conversation about that after.
The one general thing for anybody who is thinking about cataract surgery, if they have a family member who's heading toward cataract surgery, just if I was going to have that procedure myself, I would just make sure I'm monitoring any dryness. I'm cleaning my eyelashes and lids frequently, using artificial tears, making sure I get assessed for dry eye, because having any sort of surgery in the eye increases risk for dry eye and other complications. So if you can stabilize the tear film, take care of any sort of irritation, things that are growing on the eyelid and lashes, then you will increase the accuracy of those procedures and reduce the risk of complications.
Ooh, that's actually really good to know because I have had dry eyes. So again, we'll chat about that more after. But all right. Okay. So now this is the last question for you. How do you live your most nutritious life?
So I love this question, and it's a combination of everything we've talked about. But I will say in the last year and a half, I've focused personally more on sleep. I've spent so much of my life from college, from high school, college, and beyond, sacrificing sleep in order to work more or to fit more in the day. And I've done a great job of eating healthy, exercise. But in the last 2 years, I recognize how much sleep affects how I function, how prepared I come, how well I have conversations, how just I show up in every activity throughout the day. And then now we're seeing ripple effects on our cognitive problems later on in life, whether it be dementia, Alzheimer's, and it affects it. Even as I started doing more weight training and weightlifting, then I started also recognizing, wow, sleep is as important as me hitting the gym and lifting weights because 100% of how my body heals itself. And so now I'm focusing on sleep.
Amazing. I love that. I mean, obviously sleep is a pillar of a nutritious life. So I love that you're focused on that. But I always tell people that, I mean, some people, will fight that alarm in the morning, but they will get up and they will go, to the gym at 5:30 a.m. every day. And I say, you know what I'm not going to actually give you a gold star for getting to the gym 7 days at 5:30 a.m. What you probably needed to do was sleep for 2 more hours, 2 of those days. Right. So it is. And when you start to think about it as exactly what you just said, as equally important to your weight training, to your diet, to managing your stress, you really start to reap the benefits because you focus in on it as if it is just as critical, and you reap the benefits. And it's incredibly powerful. Obviously, I'm a big fan of working on your sleep. So that's amazing. Happy you're doing that. Okay. You can learn all about Joey in the show notes. So you can find him and follow him because, again, Joey provides so much incredible education on eye health. He has an incredible YouTube channel, so you definitely want to check that out. And then also, if you want to learn more about lutein and supplementing with lutein, you can check out healthyeyesandbrain.com. I will put that in the show notes as well. I am going to go eat some greens, take my supplement, and maybe even, I don't know what else I'm going to do right now for my eye health, but something. So anyway, thank you so much, Joey, for being here.
Thank you. No, this is great.